BXB. It's in the game!
As many of you guys already know, I'm a massive fan of the Dead Rising series. Earlier this year, I actually reviewed the Dead Rising Triple Pack, which include the original game, Dead Rising 2 and Dead Rising Off the Record, and really enjoyed my time with that. So here I am back with Dead Rising 4 for review. I also played Dead Rising 3 on Xbox, and Dead Rising 4 comes to us only on Xbox One and Windows PC. And this Dead Rising 4 is, well, in many ways it's a safe bet, but in some ways it's actually a bit of a departure from the previous games, and I'll get to all that shortly. Now, first of all, let me state the most important thing. As a Dead Rising game, you want to be able to wade into hordes of zombies, hundreds or thousands of them, and lay waste to them with various ridiculous weapons. Something the series since Dead Rising 2 and even Dead Rising 1 to a degree, but Dead Rising 2 especially, and then 3 and now Dead Rising 4 embrace the crazy combo weapon sort of philosophy, the idea of mashing together various normal items or household appliances or things you'd find in a mall or whatever, in creating crazy combo weapons, be they explosive sledgehammers or ice axes or lightsabers, you name it, you can create them in Dead Rising 4. Or, even vehicles as well. You can combo vehicles together and also create crazy vehicles as well. And you can definitely still do that in Dead Rising. And the combat still feels fun with the kind of the slightly wonky Dead Rising controls that we've come to expect over the last series of games. So that's still there, that is still fun, and in Dead Rising 4 you get to play as the guy who started the series off, Frank West. Sort of. It's definitely a character called Frank West. You don't look exactly like you remember Frank West, used to be, that schlubby, almost Dan Aykroyd-esque persona. You look maybe a bit younger. You're definitely svelte. You've been on your gym a lot. You've lost a lot of weight. You don't look like Frank West, who was in Off the Record, the sort of Frank Westified Dead Rising 2. But it's him. No, you don't sound like him either. Sadly, the voice actor has, for whatever reason, changed. Maybe they couldn't get him back, but that's okay. And even though you don't sound like him, you don't always act like him either. You're definitely an arsehole, and I guess Frank West was an arsehole, but you're not as everymanish. You're not as schlubby. You're a bit more of just a jackass, to be honest. And that's okay, that's fine. The story in Dead Rising 4, it takes a long time to get going, but once it does, it's fun enough, and as a framing device for wacky zombie mayhem, that's great, but the wacky zombiness isn't where it used to be either. Those crazy psychos you used to deal with in the previous Dead Rising games, they've kind of been done away with, and we have maniacs now instead, which are, lunatic survivors and stuff, but they're not maybe as outlandish as you remember them, which is a real shame. And that kind of takes me to the biggest problem I have with Dead Rising, is that the personality of the game isn't what it used to be. The charm of the Dead Rising games, especially how they originally started, were these Eastern developed, these Japanese created zombie games, which meant when you came to the genre from a very sort of skewed perspective, it was this Japanese take on this very Western phenomenon, with this weird sense of humour, and this weird take on it all, and it's just not so weird anymore. Dead Rising 3 definitely started to move away from that, but it still had some pretty wacky characters and wacky ideas in there, and the psychos were still in there and stuff. But with Dead Rising 4, it seems to have gone down a very safe route. It's not necessarily an unentertaining route, but it's definitely not that wackiness that we grew to love from the previous iterations of the franchise. And that is a decided shame. Like I said, the combat is still fun. And one thing that's cool is they've brought back photography, though it's definitely not an integral element of the main gameplay. Though the way they've sort of shoehorned it into the game to make it matter is these investigation moments where you have to use your camera to find clues in the environment around you, be it with the night vision attachment to it or the spectrum analyzer. And these are clunky. These are Batman-esque kind of modes that it just feels bad and forced and slow. and it breaks down the whole kind of what makes Dead Rising fun. Yeah, you can still take pictures and get PP and stuff out in the world and get big ranks and points for it and stuff, but it's nowhere near as sort of integral as it was in the original Dead Rising game, where it was very much a part of the leveling up system. You know, another thing that's gone from Dead Rising here are the time constraints, where you had to you know, do things in a certain amount of time. You know, get out of the town, get out of the sea, get out of the mall, get your Zombrex. All of that's gone. That time constraint, which was very much a part of this series, which was very much a part of the sort of integral DNA that set Dead Rising apart from other open world games. That's all been removed, and it's a real shame. And it really added to the personality. I mean, the restraints on and the restrictions on saving the game were long gone. You know, they've been gone since Dead Rising 3, you know, where you had to save in the toilets or specific save points. That's been removed and has been for a while, but the erosion of what made Dead Rising so unique is you know, at the detriment to the franchise. You know, you're playing this game, it's an open world game, and it is fun and enjoyable, and the combat and the moment to moment, you know, traversal of the environments, and you know, you get to still dress up all really silly and make Frank look really ridiculous at all times, and that's great, and that's still there. But oh man, I do miss the time restrictions. I do miss those save point restrictions, and I do miss the wacky personality and the wacky characters, because that is what really set Dead Rising apart from, you know, the other zombie games and the other open world games. And it's a real shame thing to see. You've got a skill tree in this. Man, it's boring. I always had a slew of leveling up points and you level up very, very rapidly in this game, but you know, I was just sat there looking at the options and going, oh man, you know, accuracy improvement for my ranged weapons, that's thrilling. No, it's really not. And on top of that, the world, we've gone back to Willamette, we've gone back to where it all started, but it doesn't feel particularly nostalgic. I mean, the mall is totally different for obvious story reasons. You know, it's a bigger mall, and that's great, and you get to go into the town itself more, but it's all a bit cut and paste and forgettable and not that engaging. Was something like Sunset Overdrive, which really embraced its kind of lunacy in its open world. But you know, it's not like everything is wrong with this game. Like I said, it lacks a little bit of personality and character in certain areas, and the story is slow and utterly forgettable for the most part, though it does sometimes embrace the lunacy that you'd expect from Dead Rising. They have done things like, you know, we've got this new, as well as taking pictures, you can do selfies. And these are hilarious. You can do different faces of Frank with the left thumbstick, and that came out with some, you know, hilarious pictures that I was able to really have fun with when playing the game as a little side diversion. And that was a little you know, reminiscent of the craziness that we used to get from the Dead Rising games. And on top of this, there's also the inclusion of an exosuit, which is basically this power armor that usually has a limited use, which you can put on and get upgrades for and really go to town on the zombies and the other human survivors, and that's a lot of fun as well. So it's not like this game doesn't have fun in it. It actually has a lot of fun in it. Like I said earlier in the review, enjoy the moment-to-moment experience of just murdering thousands of zombies. It looks good and it plays well. There wasn't much slowdown. I've had a few technical problems for the most part with audio dropping out, actually, in my longer game sessions, but I have definitely enjoyed my time with the Dead Rising. I really have. I mean, in spite of its flaws, in spite of it losing itself a little bit and forgetting where it's come from, which, you know, is a real shame. You just can't fault the fun I had with the experience, and therefore I do, for the most part, recommend this quite highly, though I can't in good conscience give it more than 3 out of 5.
BXB. It's in the game.